Some people are naturally good at caretaking, but taking care of a child and taking care of an adult while juggling your own things in life is completely different. And I hear from a lot of women that they never knew that they would have to do this and they don't know how to handle it. And that, the men are just sort of assuming that the women are going to take care of it.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, the podcast where we celebrate aging with vibrance and we defy the stereotypes of what it means to age. I'm your host, Nicole Christina, a psychotherapist of more than 30 years, here to introduce you to my off-the-mainstream guests who will energize and inspire you. My hope is to create optimism about getting older and help you cultivate zest and joy in this season of your life. And I love to hear feedback from you, my listeners. Please drop me a line at zestfulaging@gmail.com. I read every single comment. And to find out more about this podcast, hop on over to zestfulaging.com. Our guest today is part executive director, part death doula, and all heart when it comes to helping people live and die with purpose. With over 2 decades of experience, Karisha's journey has taken her from candy striper to nursing aide, caregiver coordinator, nursing home administrator in training, adjunct professor, nonprofit executive director, and now certified death doula, gerontologist, and entrepreneur. She's on a mission to take the fear out of dying so people can live more fully now. And Karisha has this beautiful blend of spirituality and strategy, practical strategy into everything she offers. She's really on a mission to take the fear out of dying, which I think is so important and so needed. Our conversation today is in conjunction with the screening of Caregiving, the documentary created with executive producer Bradley Cooper, highlighting the challenges and triumphs of caregiving in America. And this documentary will premiere Tuesday, June 24th, 2025 at 9 p.m. ET on PBS. Check your local listings and on PBS YouTube channel. It's going to be available also to stream on pbs.org and the PBS app beginning on Tuesday. It's narrated by award-winning actress Uzo Aduba, and you might remember her from Orange is the New Black. She is bringing her own experience as a caregiver for her mother to the project. Welcome to the show, Karisha.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a great introduction.
It's one of the subjects that's near and dear to your heart.
It sure is. All of the things that I've done have led me to this path, for sure.
Wow. Taking me through the development of your passion for caregiving. How did that evolve?
I've been asked this question so many times, and I really feel like some people just have a calling for this. And, when I was a candy striper, I was riding my bike to the local hospital, and I would go up to the nursing home floor and just bring them magazines and hold their hands. And I think kids used to think that was weird. And then I realized that I could do this as a career, and it really hasn't changed that much since I was a little girl. I still do a lot of hand holding.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like it could be a metaphor.
It could be. Yes.
So, you know about this documentary. It sounds like you've watched parts of it. Mm-hmm. What's the main message here, and is it congruent with what you know about caregiving?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you, when I first started my studies in gerontology, we were told you're going to be so needed, that the baby boomers are going to have this big rush. It's going to change everything. And the field is just going to be so popular. And when I looked at the documentary and it talked about, hundreds of years ago and how we got here, we're still kind of in the same place, that caregivers are underappreciated and underpaid, and mostly women. And I hope that this documentary highlights how valuable we are, and there is going to be some change, because there hasn't really been enough change, I don't think, yet.
So it sounds like what you got this message, oh, it's really important, it's going to be profound, and you're still kind of waiting for that.
Well, we see that it's important, and we see that the demand has gone up and people are living longer, but nothing has really changed for how the caregivers are valued and all of the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. And what's your philosophy about, or your theory about that? I'm sure you've given it some thought, and I know you've learned about it in your professional development. What is going on with this?
Well, we know people are living longer, and they're living with, chronic diseases and multiple diseases at a time. Families have to have two people working in order to survive these days. And so there isn't just a stay-at-home person that can do the care. Children are moving away. They're not living next to their parents anymore. And then, the systems are just not set up for the aging population.
That sounds like a perfect storm, actually.
Yes, it definitely is.
And you mentioned something about mostly women. Is that what you've experienced, that this falls on the shoulders of women mostly?
Yes, predominantly. Once in a while, you will see, a son or a husband taking care of somebody, but usually it's a female. And even when they're paid workers, it's usually female.
And what's that about? What thoughts?
Sure. Well,
let it rip, Karisha.
I know. Well, this would go into psychology and the way that we bring up our kids, and that, girls are supposed to play with dolls, and that they're supposed to be the caretaker. And there is that set expectation that, the female is supposed to just be able to naturally be a caregiver, which is not necessarily true. Some people are naturally good at caretaking, but taking care of a child and taking care of an adult while juggling your own things in life is completely different. And I hear from a lot of women that they never knew that they would have to do this, and they don't know how to handle it. And that, the men are just sort of assuming that the women are going to take care of it.
Even if it's their mother.
Even if it's their mother, or, even in the mother-in-law situation. And then not even to get other countries involved, because they have a total different dynamic set up with expectations. But even still here, usually the males are thinking, okay, I'm going to do the financial responsibility. I'll take care of, the paperwork kind of things, and all the care can be for the females. So it's not it's not easy. It's not easy.
Is your sense that these women are stepping back and saying, how did this happen and it needs to change? Are they recognizing that this is imbalanced?
Yes, they are. They do see that. How did this happen? I hear that a lot, and it comes with tears. I don't know how I got into this situation. Their job is not supporting them being caretakers. They're still caregiving for their children, the sandwich generation. And they're not taking care of themselves, for sure. And they have this expectation on them, or they made a promise to their parents, or there just are not services in the area. So they have no idea how it happened, how to get out of the situation, or how to get help. They would like it to change, but they're so exhausted just from the day to day that, they would be willing to see change, but how does that happen when you're already overworked?
Is rural healthcare also a factor, or is that not necessarily a piece of this equation?
Well, we're in Madison County, and it definitely is a rural county. We're right next to Onondaga County, and I tell people when they call in for resources that this is absolutely different. You could live 20 miles in another direction, and the care and the services are just not in this area. So if people are needing, home health aides or physical therapy, transportation, all of those are much more challenging in a rural county.
I see. It's just not part of the infrastructure. So what is the kind of advice when you are on the phone with somebody looking for resources? What are the kinds of things that you say to them?
Well, the very first thing I always say is, what's going on? And they tell me a lot. And so they come in with not just one question. They usually come in a crisis, or if an adult child visits during the holiday, or say, Mother's Day or Father's Day, they are just overwhelmed and realizing like they need all of these things now, and I have no idea how to get them, and I have to go back to work. So we take one thing at a time, and we get the facts on first, are they able to pay for services privately? Are they on Medicaid? Because that completely changes the way that services will be provided. And in Madison County, there are a lot of services from caregivers that are just cash based because they're not part of an organization of like a agency, and they are setting up their own schedules, doing it that way. But how do they get connected to those caregivers? And it usually is word of mouth or Facebook.
Oh my goodness. That's interesting. So someone might put a post out and say, I need some help.
Yes, exactly. They'll say, my mother, this is very common. My mother fell in the garden, on the stairs, whatever. She needs to have physical therapy 3 times a week. I'm unable to provide transportation.
I see.
But it's everything. In order to stay in your home, you need transportation. You need to be able to get your medication, groceries, and personal care. So it's really a whole person approach. It's not like somebody can just call in and get all the answers in 5 minutes. It's really about building that relationship and connecting them to resources in the community.
And what about Medicaid? You said that's a totally different deal. What does that offer?
Well, and I think the documentary speaks on this a little bit, that our system is broken and that you have to spend down in order to get Medicaid, in order to get services provided. And that is just sad to me that people have worked their entire lives and they consider themselves, middle or upper middle class. And because things are so expensive, they do end up spending down all of their savings. And the care that is received is through Medicaid. So Medicare is like the hospital. Medicaid is more, they can get services for food, or not in Madison County, but they can get, like the PACE program is in Syracuse, and adult daycare. If it's a medical model, they could go full time to an adult daycare. It could be paid through Medicaid. And supplies and all the other things. But that's also limited because you have to use the providers that are through those Medicaid agencies.
What a tangle. It just seems so, it's so unfriendly when people are already struggling and trying to figure this out with all of their other demands. Like, now I'm going to try to navigate this broken system.
That's right. And I tell people all the time, I don't have all the answers, but I'll try to help you find them, because it's somebody's whole job to figure out the Medicaid system, or to figure out the Medicare system, or your private insurance. It really is a lot of work to figure out what is covered for you and what providers are in network and how many times you can use it. It's just not set up how it should be.
Are other countries better at this? Have they done it in a different way?
Well, I think everybody has their ups and downs. They'll say, well, we have universal health care, but you have to use only these certain doctors, or you have to wait. But I think that the United States in a lot of ways is not reflected upon nicely in the way that we treat our most vulnerable population. And the elderly would be very much included in that. And so that is always the change that I'm hoping to see.
There's been some new legislation that I think you've been excited about. Do you want to talk about that?
Are you talking about the medical aid in dying
Yes.
program? Yes.
Yes.
So I am a big proponent of you have the right to choose what you do with your body in any way. And one of the saddest things that I see with caregivers is they feel helpless. So they feel helpless through the medical system and even the disease process, being a caregiver, all of that. But then to have to know that someone is dying slowly and you have to witness that every single day and they just do not want to be there anymore and suffer. I really feel like this is going to be a life changer for the caregiver. So and it is still up to the person if they would like to choose that right to die. Most people say they want to die at home, and this is an opportunity to make that happen. And their biggest fear usually is being in pain. And this is, a very predictable way that you can pass without being in pain. It's completely up to the individual. They have to have 6 months or less to live anyway. So it's not taking anybody's life. It's not, they are going to be dying anyway. It's just giving them that choice to die on their own terms.
It sounds like that's something really close to your heart, that you believe in this very strongly, this dignity behind when I get to choose.
Yes, I really do. And I feel like hopefully this documentary will shine some light on what it really is like to be ill in your home and like we said, navigate the system. There is a lot of pain that goes along with that. And people are they're ready to let go. And we do have hospice. And as a death doula, I work directly with them. We're non-medical and they provide the medical hands-on care and also the medication. But you're still slowly waiting for that person to die. So they can have morphine, but then, they're out of it, but their body is still slowly passing away. And that is still a lot on the caregiver. The hospice can come in a couple times a week if it's available in your area and do help with, the bathing and that kind of thing. But for the rest of the time, the 22 hours of the day, the rest of the week, it's that caregiver who is having to do all that. And not to say that a person should pass because the caregiver is doing all that work, but they see them in the pain and they know that they wouldn't want to have been like that. And usually we hear someone say, if I ever get like that, just shoot me. And, they're not going to do that, but they know that they wouldn't want to be in that state of living. They would want to die with peace.
Hi, Zesties. Well, we all know that exercise is really important, especially as we age. Some say it's the most important thing you can do to stay healthy. But many of us find that it's really easy to start an exercise routine, but it's hard to keep it up. That's why we see so many exercise bikes and machines being used as clothes hangers come March. Am I the only one who has bought a gym membership that turned out to be a total waste of money? At this point in life, I want to do things that are good for me, but also fun. You'll never find me at a class called boot camp because life is hard enough. And that is why I love my rebounder. What is a rebounder? Well, it's a mini trampoline that has so many health benefits, it's kind of crazy. It turns out that gently jumping up and down provides excellent benefits to our whole body. It helps clear lymphatic drainage, which is basically toxic waste in our bodies. And get this, NASA uses it to help their astronauts reacclimate when they've been up in space. And I'm not even going to go into the improvements in complexion and mood. Let's just say it's hard to be in a bad mood when you're jumping to your favorite music. It's like your own dance party. But if you're interested in a rebounder, please take my advice. Don't buy a cheap one. They can actually be dangerous. I would recommend the one I have, which is a NEEDAK rebounder. It's NEEDAK, and mine's going on about 20 years old. I use it with light weights, and I've actually used it to train for the senior tennis games, as well as my Camino walk in Spain. And it's also great to use in upstate New York in the winter when the weather is awful, which is pretty often. So right now you can get a free rebounder cover at NEEDAK if you use the coupon code ZESTFUL. So again, NEEDAK, NEEDAK. And if you have any questions, check out my YouTube demo. It's my most watched YouTube to date. So happy jumping, and I would love to hear how you like it. Is suicide in the aged? Is that a thing? I mean,
Very much so. I just went to a suicide prevention training at the library, and they talked about how there's an uptick in it, and especially for men using guns and how to prevent that, and to have to go in that sort of way and to feel like that's the only option for you, and it's not a guarantee that it's going to actually work.
Right.
But I can't imagine feeling like that's the only option that you have.
And then emotionally what you leave behind.
That's right. And who is going to be the person that finds that and literally has to clean up is that person who has been caring for you, which is a whole other part of caregiving that I think we don't talk enough about.
The suicide
finding... and even just after the person dies, you've been a caregiver. Sometimes people do it for a short time, 1 or 2 years. Sometimes people are doing it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. It doesn't just end then. There's all of the paperwork and legal documents and the house to take care of, and just all of the things, clothing and photos and all of that. So the caregiving job doesn't just end the day that the person dies.
Yes. You're dealing with life and death issues, so much complexity in these relationships. And I'm wondering how that is for you as somebody who's doing this day in and day out, and perhaps, hitting your head against a wall of a system that is so broken.
Well, I like to think that I help empower the people that I'm working with. So we can use the system, but we can also figure out how to give them what they need on their own. And that's why I actually started the Death Cafe a couple of years ago, because I knew that I needed an outlet to talk to other people. If you're seeing death on a regular basis, and I knew that other people wanted to talk about death because I did a death and dying series, and it was the best outcome for participation that we've ever had. And so people wanted to talk about it. They just didn't have a safe space. And so I created it, and it is, I think, wildly successful in that we always have participants, and there's new people that come in, and people are relieved to be able to talk about it. But just hearing them talk about what they're going through helps me if it's anything that I've struggled with.
I see. So it's therapeutic for you to just be able to talk about something that still in our culture feels like it's stigmatized.
Mm-hmm. And I never use names or anything like that, but sometimes you have a feeling or you feel stuck, and other people just have different ways of going about it. I work with 2 other doulas, and one of them is an energy worker. So she'll give me breathing exercises or do some tapping with me. I've really worked on just journaling to get my feelings out, and because it's very heavy. And if you're doing it on a regular basis, you can really carry that with you, and you don't want to carry that into your next job. You got to be fresh and ready to go and help them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's like 2 layers here. Is all of the emotions that come with being with a loved one who's dying, and then dealing with the frustration, I imagine, of a culture that's still pretty clueless about what's needed here.
Mm-hmm. And I hear that a lot, that I never knew. I never knew this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of frustrates me with the, the bill that was supposed to go through to help the caregivers, that all those people that voted, they had to have been touched by caregiving in some way, because we know that. We know that you're going to, be a caregiver, or you're going to care for somebody, or like I would say in my gerontology classes, this is the one class that you will take that you will use 100% at some point in your life, because everybody is aging. So I don't understand how they don't see it, unless you're just so blindsided that you don't want to see it.
I see.
In our society too, that, if it doesn't affect me, then it doesn't matter.
And I don't want to think about death. So, right? I mean, there's something like it's unsavory. Let's pretend.
That's right. And when you have, women doing the work, and mostly women of color, and if they're less educated, if they're doing all of the hard work, then, it doesn't impact me as much. And
who cares? They're marginalized and yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. I think anybody who has cared for somebody is just different. There's a different kind of empathy that they have, and there's a different kind of appreciation for life. That's also why I like my groups, because even though people have gone through this hardship, I think that they're really special kind of people, because they know that life is not forever, and they appreciate the little things more.
And is that what you have also learned as you have sat by people dying, holding their hands? I mean, what have you taken from these experiences?
Well, I definitely have a different appreciation of life. And I think that I value the things that I spend my time on. And I really have tried to let go of the things that don't serve me at all. And that no is a complete sentence. And you can get sucked into helping a lot of people if you are considered a helper in the community. And people think, oh, she'll just do it, So I've learned to say no, and where I spend my time, I want it to be valuable for me, because I know that it doesn't last forever.
So do you ask yourself certain questions when someone approaches you, or you have opportunities or invitations? Do you kind of put it through a filter?
Absolutely. So, because I am on different boards and committees, I want to know what the impact is going to be on the community. And I really like to have actionable things happening. So like the literacy committee, I can take books to someone's house today and change, their day. I don't want to be part of, even though it's important, if we're trying to change policies and that kind of thing, that's such a long way out. I'm like for the day-to-day action.
I see. So you put that through a filter, like, can I do this? Is it practical almost? Can I do this today? And if not, I'll choose to do something else.
Right.
What about the way you spend your off time? How do you make decisions about that?
Well, I consider myself a stay-at-home mom, number one. Even though I have all these different things on my resume, I think it's sort of old school, but I think I'm a homemaker, and I get my kids on and off the bus. I am aware of the activities that are going on for them. I choose to do very limited things at the school through the PTA, just so I can be part of their life. But I have home cooked meals for them, and we're available for all their after school activities. And then when they're sick, and they still need me very much for a lot of the just little things. And I think that is just as important. And my career has been built around that. So I have time for my kids, but now that they're in school and doing things, I have time to do my executive work part-time, and then I only take on so many clients through the death doula work because you can only manage so much, and you want to be available to those families when you say you're going to be there.
So this is very thoughtful. You've really strategized about how can my services best be used, and I need to also make sure I can keep going with these demands, right?
Yes. And I hope that my clients feel the exact same way, that they're getting, when they have me, I'm with them 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I do offer vision board classes. And I know that also seems kind of old school, but it really helps caregivers, or I really concentrate on women in the second half of their life. What do they want for themselves? You take out money, you take out expectations, and you just think about what do you love to do? What would you love to do? For, if you didn't have any obstacles in the way, and just gets them dreaming about what they would like for their life. And then, you can work kind of backwards and try to figure out. So if you can't get to the ocean, maybe you could go down to the lake, and how to make them match their goals. So I feel like my life has kind of been built the same way, that I think about how can I best serve my family and my community and myself, and then build, the things around that.
So, in sort of a vision board kind of theme, if you had your way, Karisha, what would caregiving support look like? What would legislation and and culture change look like around caregiving?
Oh gosh. Well, I do think that the person providing the care, and I don't think people really realize they are doing all the care, the bathing and dressing, personal care, making all the meals, that I would love to be valued and looked at as a respected job, and have them compensated for that. And that, I think, would just trickle down into, their families and even the community. I do think that you need multiple people to care. It can't just be one person. That just will lead into burnout. We don't have that set up anymore, where even grandparents helping with the grandkids, and so that someone can get out or go to work. It just isn't set up like that anymore. We're not living next to our parents, but even if we are, our parents are still working even longer, and so they're not able to provide that childcare. It used to be in some places they still do this, where there's a 3-generational home, and it really makes sense that the parents, and especially the grandparents, are helping with the youngest children. It gives them a purpose in what they're doing. They're passing on their wisdom for cooking or crafts, or if they had a certain skill, and then the parents can go out and work while their children are being cared for by people that they love and trust. And then it kind of cycles. So when the parents really need a lot of care, the children are older, so they can chip in as well as their parents. And then it just keeps cycling like that. But we're not set up like that. We really emphasize still, working as much as we possibly can. And the family, unfortunately, is not the number one goal. And there's not enough services out there to supplement it either, even just for respite for caregivers.
Boy, there's just such profound problems, and you can see that there's just no quick fix, right? Even if there was this greatest legislation ever, our culture is moving away from that sense of, we're interconnected to I'm an individual, and, I'm going to take care of me.
Right. And I think we put a big emphasis on still living forever and denying that we're going to die. And, we could have a whole other podcast about that, but we just we don't witness it. If we're not around it, we don't accept it. And, we don't need to try to live forever. It's okay to live your course of life and release, the medical medications or devices and all that, and just come into that phase of your life where that it's time.
Yeah, that It's a very different philosophy you're talking about, right? Like, okay, I've had my run. I have maybe some regrets, but I'm ready. It just doesn't sound like the typical conversation.
It doesn't, but the people that I talk to are just so happy to be able to talk to somebody else about it, because once they've, gotten to that point and they realize that, especially if they have had chronic pain or say cancer multiple times, and they're just so ready and everybody else wants them to keep fighting. And so they're just not able to talk to other people about, well, I am ready, and this is what I want my last chapter to look like. And that can include that medical aid in dying. And I do some things that I like to do creative projects with families, and some things that can help them have conversations without. I do death over dinners as well, where you can have conversations over dinner, but you can come in and you can organize a photo album and talk about, well, who's in this picture, and tell me about them, and what do you think? It just leads into, other conversations. It can also be even with oracle cards, where you are putting your memories onto a card with a picture or a saying, so that you're preparing yourself to have the person pass away. And then after they pass away, each day you can pull a card, and it gives you something positive to remember them by. So it doesn't have to be a negative experience. You can do a lot of things to make it more acceptable and to help with the grieving process.
Yeah, wow, that's very interesting. It sounds so healthy. Well, where can people find out more about you, Karisha? You do such wonderful work in the community. Everybody knows you. Everyone says you have to talk to Karisha. Where can people find out more about who you are and what you offer?
Sure. So my website is just my name, because I do offer so many different services. So it's Karisha Solomon, KarishaSolomon. And that has everything on there. And there's even courses on there that are pre-recorded for the busy caregiver, because I hear that all the time, where I wish I could come to your workshops and your courses, but I don't have the time. So they're very reasonably priced, and they can get all the information there.
Beautiful. And do you have a social handle or following?
Well, I usually tell people to go to my LinkedIn page, because they want to know more about me. And I'm not big on sharing all the things that I've done, but you can see all of my achievements on that. I'm on Facebook under Karisha Solomon, and I'm also on LinkedIn, and I do share a lot through my Pinterest page.
Oh, really?
Inspiration and products that are stylish and functional, so you don't have to feel so medicalized all the time.
Wow. I interviewed a couple women a couple years ago that made this beautiful urinal. It looks like a vase, a fancy vase. And they were saying, like, who wants to be using some gross, does not medicalized looking thing?
That's right. And you can feel worse when you're surrounded by all of that stainless steel and plastic. Even when somebody is caring for someone who's bedbound, we can come in and just change the room around a little bit and bring all the senses to them, and just make it look less medical, and it makes them feel better, and it makes the caregiver feel better too.
I'm not surprised to hear that. Even bringing some flowers in from your garden, might be helpful.
Yeah, opening the window to get a breeze. People are just doing so many things, and their brain is just full of all the necessities that they think, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So it's nice to have an advocate come in. And so that a death doula isn't just for somebody who is passing. It can be to do the planning ahead of time, or even after. So.
Oh, yes. We've had a handful of death doulas on the show, and even as I've been doing this over the years, I can see that they're getting more popular and more recognized as we're facing this caregiving crisis. So thank you so much for spending time with us and helping us understand this. It's so complex, and I'll be looking forward to see the screening of the documentary, and maybe you will be there as well.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. Our theme song is All I Did Was Wait for You by Kajartan Abel. Visit Kajartan-Abel, that's KJARTAN-Abel, ABEL.com to hear more of Kajartan's work. And our technical director is Stephen Litweiler. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest. See you then.